Hey guys, Cameron here with Emerson Property Management. Every week I bring you tools, tactics, strategies, lessons I've learned, things that have helped me build up a sizable rental portfolio in about 2 years and now manage that portfolio. Today, guys, I want to talk to you about fair housing. Now, this is a very boring subject. If you're licensed, we have to take legal update 1 and 2, and we're always being educated on fair housing and how that can impact our business, how we have to make sure our marketing and everything is not being discriminatory. Now, you might want to just skip over this and say, oh, hey, I know about fair housing. But especially if you're licensed, how many times have you heard owners say, I don't want to I'd rather not have kids in this house. I don't want to have a family with kids. I'd rather just have a single person because it's less wear and tear. I don't want pets. And that could mean somebody with a disability. They have a disability, they have a registered pet for their disability. I don't want that person. You can't do that. So I just want to talk through it real quick. I'm not going to get lengthy in this, but I just want to spend a few minutes because I've heard that time and time again about, well, I just follow what the landlord, as a lease agent, I just follow what the landlord says. Whatever the landlord, their qualifications I go by. You got to be careful with that because they're not staying up to date on this stuff. They're not paying attention. Or they just do what feels good and hope they don't get caught, which happens sometimes. They can get away with it. So I'm just going to go over the fair housing and HUD and give you a high overview real quick, go into it, and then, let you know. I mean, there's plenty of stories we can go into about things that come up, but just give you guys a high level overview so you don't get yourself in trouble, and then and we'll go on. So first and foremost, what is fair housing? Fair housing is a part of the Civil Rights Act of 1978 that describes the protected classes. Do you guys know how many protected classes there are? There are 7. Race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. Now, sex, they have expanded a little bit to sexual orientation or gender identity, so that can come up as well, or sexual preference. So these are the 7 ones that are in the fair housing laws. However, again, some of these have been expanded a little bit. So disability, again, we were talking about people who are disabled who have maybe a pet, but pet laws are not applicable if they're for somebody with a disability, like an ESA animal. So that's not a pet. It's not subject to pet laws. Familial status comes up quite a bit. Again, I mentioned family with kids. I'd rather have a single person in there. They're going to be less wear and tear. So these are the basic fair housing. Now, you guys have probably heard HUD as well, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That basically enforces the fair housing laws. So fair housing, again, Civil Rights Act of 1968, and then HUD, if you guys ever see HUD, that's who enforces these laws. Now, we also in Texas are governed by TREC, the Texas Real Estate Commission. So if you're found and you have a TREC complaint, you can be imposed up to a fine of about $5,000. Their range from a couple $100 to I think $5,000 is the max. HUD, however, if you violate any of these, HUD fine goes up to $100,000. I just saw recently that they had fined somebody $100,000. Now, it's probably not an individual, it's probably a corporation, but still, they can get upwards 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000. So that's very, very, very expensive. So I don't think I need to tell you to follow the fair housing. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right, y'all? But what I will say is just be careful if you're leasing, especially. This really comes up in leasing a lot, right? Because once the resident's in there, it's more just maintenance and taking care of the property, making sure the health and safety of the property is taken care of. But it's really in regards to leasing. And I don't know how many times I've heard lease agents say, I just go with what the owner wants, if they're not managing it, right? We, as a property management company, do not allow our owners in the selection process whatsoever. None. 0. And why is that? Some people say, well, I want to have the say who goes to my property. Well, how many tenants have you screened, Mr. Owner or Mrs. Owner? Oh, I did 3 or 4. Okay, I've done 3 or 4 this week. We've done hundreds. We're probably getting close to 1,000 tenants we've screened. We make sure that we follow all this. We're taking continuing education to stay up to date on this. So if you're an agent and you're doing this stuff, please be aware that if you're deferring to your owner's qualifications, that might not be enough. You might still be violating this. It amazes me that I still hear, well, I don't want a family. You got to even be careful in your descriptions. I've heard things about, oh, this is an easy walk to the park. Well, that discriminates against disabled people who can't walk, who are in a wheelchair. Again, steering and redlining comes up a lot with race, color, religion, and national origin. Oh, well, hey, this is a community of Baptists, or this is a community of, whatever religion. Oh, there's a bunch of them over there. You might want to be over there. You can't do that. That is steering. That is a big no-no. So you can't steer people based on any of these either. You need to do objective facts when you're writing your listing descriptions. So those are a couple hot topics and things that come up. Fair housing is a big deal, right? There are people that call and actually test you on fair housing. That will say, hey, do you take, I've got 4 kids. Would you take me? And they're like, oh, no, I don't think so. And then boom, you're slapped with a fair housing claim or violation. So just be careful, guys. These sound very simple. And again, they've expanded on sex and they've expanded on some of these. So, there's 7 basic, but these expand a little bit to some say 9, some say 10. But really, as long as you have a clear set of guidelines and you're making sure that you're not violating any of this, that you're processing people either best app or first come, first serve, and you're not taking into consideration any of this stuff, you're going to be fine. Please be aware if you're an owner setting your own qualifications, or you're a lease agent that is allowing their owner to set their qualifications and have approval, know that you can still be in trouble for that. If you approve or deny the applicant because of what the owner said, you're still involved in that mix. It's not, you can't just say, well, the owner told me to do it. They're going to say, well, you're the licensed person. You're the one who's licensed. You're the one who's supposed to know better. So be careful with this, y'all. It's one of those things in the business that has a lot of attention on it, and it can get very, very expensive. And I speak to a lot of folks about this. It seems like a lot of my owners, hey, I'm going to move back in the house. I would love to have just a single person in there. Can't do that. Can't do it. I would love to not have pets. Well, if they're disabled and have a valid doctor's note with reason for an ESA animal, can't do it. Or service animal, I can't, because they have a disability, we cannot discriminate against them. We have to allow them in there. So those are probably the biggest ones: kids, and then pets. And then, like I said, the other thing is making sure when you're writing your listing descriptions, you don't steer anybody any which way. Oh, hey, this is, again, Baptist or Jehovah's Witness or over here or whatever it is. Make sure you're not, steering people into certain neighborhoods. So I hope that was helpful. You guys can find this. We'll put a link somewhere in the video for this so you guys can find this on the Fair Housing website. Again, Civil Rights Act of 1968, and then HUD is the one who enforces this. If you guys ever are wondering about that. And these are federal laws. These are not Texas state specific. These are federal fair housing laws. So hope that was helpful. If it was, let me know. If it wasn't, let me know. And I appreciate y'all.